go to Israel now, where the final report on the 2006 war in Lebanon is due to be published on Wednesday. It's expected to sharply criticize the way Israel handled the war with Hezbollah. One man who'll be reading with great interest is Defense Minister Ehud Barak, who's not disguising his ambitions to be Israel's next Prime Minister. Jacky Rowland looks at what he stands to gain or lose.
A man on a mission to seal his legacy. Ehud Barak, once Prime Minister, now Defence Minister, but aiming for the top job again. And he glimpses a chance to realise that ambition when the Winograd Commission publishes its report into the Second Lebanon War. Ehud Barak is no stranger to Lebanon. In May 2000, as Prime Minister, he pulled Israeli troops out of their so-called security zone in southern Lebanon, ending an occupation that lasted nearly 20 years. Critics say this enabled Hezbollah to rearm, paving the way for the Second Lebanon War. Less than 2 months later, he was talking peace with Yasser Arafat. Bill Clinton brought the two men together in the twilight of his presidency, but to no avail. Despite concessions on both sides, neither man could persuade the other to take that final step to clinch a deal.
Barak was hurt by the collective memory, the collective recollection of Israelis of his peace moves as reckless, premature, and to a certain extent even undemocratic, because he went to Camp David with a minority government. And to this day he argues that his moves were correct, his opponents were wrong, the failure was Arafat's, and that he needs to be given a second chance.
That second chance began in June last year when Ehud Barak won the leadership of the Labour Party. A second chance to be in the government, and later maybe even a second chance to form the government himself.
He feels that he needs to correct his place in history, his reputation. He was the soldier #1, the most decorated soldier in Israeli history. He was the hero, he was the promise. And right now he is considered to be a disappointment.
Barak's return to the cabinet came with a sting in the tail. He's threatened to pull Labour out of the coalition if Prime Minister Olmert doesn't resign after the Winograd report. Bluff or promise? Well, that may depend on the opinion polls. At the moment, polls in Israel suggest that Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of the right-wing Likud party, would have most to gain if elections were held tomorrow. That's why Ehud Barak is nervous about forcing an early vote. He could see his ambitions evaporate, maybe for good. No one in Israel doubts Barak's intelligence. The question is whether he has the ability to make friends and influence people across the national spectrum.
I believe Ehud Barak conducts himself the same way he always conducted himself. He is not changing, he will not change in this context. Those who are willing to implement his thoughts, to help him to materialize his plans, then they can continue and work with him, and it's up to them. But at the end, he doesn't believe in people. He believes in history, in destiny, and in himself.
So Barak's decision may have less to do with Winograd and more to do with opinion polls. He won't want to bring down the government until the polls tell him he has a chance of winning an election. Jacky Rowland, Al Jazeera.